Hello again, friends. It's possible that some of you have experienced something like this. Opinion article. The salaryman syndrome. Works from 8 to 12 hours a day. He hates his job, but he hides it. Little rest and less fun. He believes that money justifies his slavery. He hates his boss, but he has Stockholm syndrome. You don't dare claim a schedule for fear of dismissal. He's not a living being, but he is not dead either. He is a zombie. The burnout worker syndrome affects the self-employed. The act of escaping from the life of a wage earner is called datsusara. Death from overwork is normal in Japanese culture. The worst countries in the world for retirees are Argentina and Thailand. Many employers not only want to buy your work, but also your soul. A new system for monitoring publications on social networks goes into effect. Let's start. If you wake up in the morning unnecessarily with upset stomach and worried about a non-existent job, even if you are unemployed or retired, do not have the slightest doubt that you are suffering from the so-called wage earner syndrome or salaryman. A salaryman is someone who is paid for his job at best, but at worst may be someone who his ideas or behavior subordinates his own judgment to the slave driver who pays him. Wage labor, salaried labor or wage labor is the socio-economic relationship between an employee, also called a salary worker, and an employer, also called an entrepreneur, whereby the former gives up his or her labor force through a contract of employment, formal or informal. These transactions usually take place in the labor market, where wages or salaries are determined by the market. In return of the wage, the labor product usually becomes the property of the employer, except in special cases such as the ownership of intellectual property patents, where the patent rights are usually assigned to the original inventor. A wage earner is a person whose primary means of income in the sale of his or her labor. System of belief. We were taught that the right path after finishing school is to go to the university and then look for a secure job to earn money. That's what I did for half my life until I realized I didn't have the life I wanted, because I was following a work belief system. A wage earner is one who has fulfilled society's maxim: study and look for a stable job. A wage earner is not only one who works for a salary, but this type of person also has a number of particularities, such as hating their boss, having little rest, having less fun, spending little time with friends and family, working 8 to 12 hours without daring to claim a schedule for fear of being fired, and working 8 to 12 hours a day on a piecework basis. He believes that the money he earns justifies his effort, but deep down he feels that he is a slave. He is not a living being, nor is he dead, but he is not alive either. He's like one of those zombies in the horror movies. What most defines an employee is the hatred he feels for the job he has. He wakes up every day thinking that arriving at the company is the worst thing that can happen to him. When he arrives here, his ordeal is exacerbated by the fact that his boss suffers from Monday morning temper syndrome. That's why the employee spends the day looking at the clock and counting the hours to get out of that prison. The Stockholm syndrome is the psychological state in which a hostage ends up loving and helping the abuser and depriving him of his freedom, and sometimes a strange sadomasochistic love-hate relationship is created between the worker and his boss. Datsusara. The art of escaping from the life of a wage earner is called datsusara in Japanese. It refers to people who decide to live their wage earning life to work at other things that make them happier. But it is not easy to make this change because we were taught that the goal of life is to find a secure job, although there is nothing in life that is safe, and even less so now with the crisis we are suffering. The riskiest thing you can do is to change to another job that pays less, but there can be nothing more horrible than working in something you hate. Life in the comfort zone is what keeps you from living that wage-earning life. The fear of trying something new in your life keeps you hanging on to your horrible job. The case of Japan. A salaryman in Japan is a salary worker, and more specifically, a Japanese white-collar employee who shows a primary loyalty and commitment to the corporation where he works. Employees are expected to work long hours, extra overtime to participate in leisure activities after work, such as drinking, singing in karaoke, and visiting hostess bars with colleagues, and to value work above all else. The employee usually enters a company after graduating from university and remains in that corporation throughout his or her career. Other popular notions surrounding employees include karoshi, or death from overwork. In conservative Japanese culture, becoming an employee is the expected career choice for young men, and those who do not take this career path are considered to live with a stigma and less social prestige. On the other hand, the word wage earner is sometimes used with derogatory connotations because of their total dependence of their employer and their lack of individuality. Kamikazes or cottage eaters. In my opinion, the biggest problem is that many companies are not content to buy your work from you, but also want to buy your soul. That's the question. Even sometimes, to get a job, you have to take a kamikaze oath of allegiance until death. I would say kosher. At that left is to be forced to kiss the boss feet. Excuse me. For example, to get a job at Amazon, it's not enough to simply have an impressive CV. Jeff Bezos described that 3 key questions applicants must answer in the affirmative to make a decision to hire them. First, will you admire your boss? Of course. Second, will you raise the effectiveness of the group? Of course. Third, in which area will you be able to be a superstar? Oh, in all areas. Burnout worker. Finally, burnout syndrome has been recognized as a real condition. The World Health Organization has announced that it will be included as an occupation disease. It is a syndrome that particularly affects self-employed workers. Chronic stress, anxiety, energy depletion, negative feelings toward activity, etc. are some of the symptoms that indicate that the person may suffer from burnout syndrome. This is a previously unrecognized occupational disease that is estimated by experts to affect more than 20% of workers, including the self-employed. Brief news. The US is sanctioning sanctioning 5 Iranian entities for interfering in elections. The Treasury Department said in a press release, "Today, the Treasury Department's Office of Foreign Assets Control designated 5 Iranian entities from attempting to influence elections in the United States. The Iranian regime has targeted the election process with a blatant attempt to sow discord among voting population by spreading disinformation online and executing influence operations aimed to deceiving US voters," the text says. The Western Five Eyes Alliance is looking to China because it needs to expand its list of challenges in the light of a supposed threat. All the intelligence gathered by this structure will be considered in the confrontation with China, as was done during the Cold War with the Soviet Union. The spy network formed by the United States and the United Kingdom, Canada, Australia and New Zealand is experiencing a growing need for intelligence information in everything. In which countries do retirees live best? The experts of the Mercer Institute published the Global Pension Index, which shows which countries have the best and worst pension systems. As last year, Denmark and the Netherlands were awarded with the A ranking. Israel, Australia, Finland, Sweden, Norway, Singapore, Canada, New Zealand, Germany, Ireland and Chile were placed in the B rank. The worst country for retirees are Argentina and Thailand. Among the developed countries, the worst pension system is in Japan, which ranks 32. Mexico. The Mexican Chamber of Deputies approves the consultation proposed by López Obrador to prosecute former presidents. The Mexican Chamber of Deputies approved Thursday the proposal of President Andrés Manuel López Obrador to submit for consultation the prosecution of his predecessors for alleged corruption. With 272 votes in favor and 116 against, the lower house approved the proposed opinion of the executive. Mexican export with a better performance than the world average. Mexico's export have shown a better performance in the third quarter of 2020, which exceeds the average of the world trade trend, revealed the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development. Although Mexican export fell by 4.3% year-on-year in the period in question, world trade flows recorded a slightly greater decline of 4.5%. Carlos Slim proposes raising the retirement age to 75 and working 3 days a week for 11 hours to make room for other people. Some people took the opportunity to remind the tycoon that many companies, including his own, do not hire people over 50. Mexican billionaire Carlos Slim Elu made some controversial proposals to prevent countries from going bankrupt, which forced many governments to establish restrictions and restraints. Information silence. It's possible that the readjustment of currency began on Wednesday, 21st October at 4 a.m. with the negotiation of bonds and other assets according to military intelligence contacts, and this could explain the veil of silence that has been lifted on this issue. In addition, a new system for monitoring publications on social networks, emails, text messages, telephone conversations by the National Security Agency and military intelligence has come into effect. According to Gene Code, the timeline we are on will be something like this. Trump wins in a landslide. Then big accusations. So after that, Nisara and Gisara. Then the Ides of March 2021. And the fall of Caesar, the fall of the Cabal, and then the multiverse celebration and endless dancing in the street. Then come all that is amazing, miraculous, and faith to Gaia, her kingdoms, and humanity. All that was destroyed is divinely restored. The wealth that was stolen is restored. All wounds and emotional traumas are healed. All illnesses and diseases are eliminated, and miraculous technologies appear. That's all for today. I thank you very much.